to the 5th episode of Video Dead, where we take a look at non-horror themed songs with surprising horror themed videos. I'm Candace with Death by Stereo Podcast, and whether you're joining us on YouTube or listening to us by way of podcast, I want to welcome you to the madness. Today, we're taking a look at the 1997 hit Everybody Backstreet's Back by the Backstreet Boys. So, before we get into this, I'm going to go ahead and welcome my husband, Chris, or better known as Crater. Hey, Chris.
How's it going?
Doing good. I'm ready to do this one. This is a little bit different than different in the style of music.
Yeah, a little bit different genre. We've been mainly focusing so far on the show. We've been focusing on like rock music, kind of rock and poppy music. Which this Backstreet Boys are like a pop, like I guess you call them pop music.
Yeah. It's our first like boy group type, song. But I'm excited for this one because I was a huge Backstreet Boys fan. I still am. I still like the Backstreet Boys a lot. But I was in the craze, maybe even you were. I think you like the Backstreet Boys too. I mean, there's no.
Well, I do, but not in the beginning, like when they first came out, because it wasn't cool or whatever to like the Backstreet Boys if you were a guy, and because at the same time, the Spice Girls were out, and I was into the Spice Girls, so I remember all the kids in school would buy like those magazines, like the Teen Beat magazines and stuff, and the girls were getting them mostly for like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Hanson and stuff like that, and so I liked the Spice Girls, and my favorite when they were out was Posh Spice. So I would get the posters and stuff out of them, and I would have them up on my walls and stuff. But go ahead. What you was gonna say?
When it came to the Spice Girls, because I was a huge Spice Girls fan too. I was a fan of Ginger Spice. She was my favorite. I think Posh was my least favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My two favorites was Posh Spice and Baby Spice.
My two least favorites were Posh and Sporty. I don't know why, but my best friend, her favorite was Sporty. So
I just wasn't really into Sporty Spice that much because she was more of like the tomboyish, I guess, and she didn't really
stuff like
that. She wasn't unattractive or anything. She was attractive, but it's just that she didn't display as much sex appeal, I guess you could say, as the rest of the band did.
I guess that's
whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Well, just typical, I guess, hormonal boys. I guess that's what they look for.
Yeah, well, same thing with girls and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and New Kids on the Block or whatever,
That's true.
But what I was getting at though was like like I said in the beginning, I wasn't a fan, but as I got older, I'm like, I would hear their songs and stuff on the radio in different places, and I was like, I really like that song. I think it's it's a really catchy song, and so I just kind of got over that whole I don't care if people thinks I'm cool or whatever. Yeah. I'm just going to be honest with people and just say what I like, if it's not. So yeah, I do like Backstreet Boys. I do like this song. Me and you actually went to a concert of theirs years ago. It was both them and the New Kids on the Block, and it was one of the funnest times I've ever had at a concert.
It was. I was a New Kids on the Block fan back in the when I was a little bitty girl. I was real little. I was born in the late '80s, so by the time I got probably 5 years old or something like that, New Kids on the Block had like taken over by storm again. They were still real big, and they came out with the dolls, and I got those for Christmas one year, and I was a huge fan. So because I didn't get to go see the Backstreet Boys during the 90s craze or early 2000s craze, I didn't get that to go there. I had a lot of friends who had went and got to experience that, but I didn't. So whenever I got the opportunity to get to see the Backstreet Boys. I was much older. Me and you were dating, and it was one of
Yeah.
our. We hadn't been dating very long, maybe a year or so, I guess, when we finally
Yeah, I
went.
think
Not even
it
that
was
long.
about around a year. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
So when I finally got to go to that, it was like a dream come true because I, as a little big girl, would have loved to seen them. New Kids on the Block, and then here I am getting to see two bands that I just loved growing up, and I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but back whenever the Backstreet Boys like boy group craze was huge, um, girls would either choose you would either be a Backstreet Boys fan or a NSYNC fan. You rarely ever seen anybody who was like on both teams. It's kind of like the whole Twilight craze where
Yeah.
it's either Team Edward or Team Jacob, and you have to choose one. Even though I liked some of NSYNC's music because I remember when they both had came out right back to back and were getting huge, and we went out and bought their singles, both NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. I
Hmm.
remember liking NSYNC, but as I got more and more into the Backstreet Boys, I stopped liking NSYNC as much. So I to say that I'm a huge fan of NSYNC, I can't say that because I'm not. There's a few songs that I like. Now I like Justin Timberlake, but I don't
Yeah.
sit and choose to listen. But I could sit and listen to Backstreet Boys still. You know.
Now, I do remember that. I remember a lot. There, the girls I went to school with and stuff. They were just like that. Um, and they were like, if you were either a Backstreet
Mhm.
Boys hardcore fan or you were NSYNC. But there were another select group of girls that I went to school with who didn't like either Backstreet
I was
Boys
getting ready to
or
say that.
NSYNC, and they were hardcore into Hanson.
Well, that
Um,
too, which I remember Hanson a little bit before Backstreet Boys. Um, as they got really, really, really big, Hanson kind of fell to the wayside, and it was either Team NSYNC or Team Backstreet
Yeah.
Boys.
Well,
But
yeah,
then,
because they didn't have as much longevity with
yeah,
their group
yeah,
as the NSYNC and Backstreet Boys,
yeah, it was like
obviously.
bop, and then it would, then it went, kind of,
Yeah.
they kind of went under the radar after that. But there was also these offshoots during the whole NSYNC versus Backstreet Boys whole craze,
Mhm.
where there's some girls that didn't choose Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. They were like 98 Degrees or one of
Oh
those
yeah,
bands.
yeah.
One of those bands.
LFO. I think is that what they're called,
Yeah,
LFO.
yeah, I think
And
so.
there was several around that time that were coming out that were trying to, I guess, compete for popularity and stuff at the time. But another thing I want to mention is that like even there was the girls that had either chose sides, like I said, but at least the girls I went to school with, they hated the Spice Girls too.
Oh
Like,
my god,
and
seriously?
it was like vice versa with the boys, because like the boys would supposed to hate the Backstreet Boys or
Yeah.
NSYNC or whatever that the girls liked. So the girls I went to school with would hate what the boys liked,
Hmm.
and it was it's
So
very stupid stuff when we were kids. Like
that's a
to like
totally different like experience for me. I knew no boys. There might have been the rare occasion where there were some guys that liked um Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or Spice Girls or something like that. No, my younger brother at the time, he was a little kid at the time, and my first cousins, they were young. They were probably, I don't know, I can't even tell you how old they were. 4, 5, 6, something like that. They loved the Backstreet Boys. They loved them, and they loved Spice Girls. So,
Well,
uh,
your brother also was a fan of the Baja Men too. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah,
He let
yeah,
the dogs out.
yeah. But at school, you didn't see that. All the
Right.
girls were obsessed with Spice Girls. All the girls were either obsessed with Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. You
Yeah.
didn't really see that coming from,
Yeah, I mean, I can see that because we grew up in two completely different areas
areas.
where
Yeah, and two totally different types
people,
of
two
groups,
different types of like
schools.
communities
Yeah,
of people and how they perceive things.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, but like as I got older though, I just kind of like like I said, I just be honest about what I like. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. I ain't got no reason to choose
No.
sides
No.
or anything. That stuff is like so
No.
silly and trivial now that I'm older.
Yeah, and and we try to teach our son to be that way, to be open minded, and to like whatever he likes,
Like
and to
whatever
be
you
and
like.
to love whatever he likes. And sadly, I think that's what had a lot to do with it back then. Is that I think boys did like it because my mom and dad didn't care if that my brother liked Backstreet Boys or Spice Girls or anything like that. They didn't think anything of it. But
Right.
unfortunately, there were some parents that probably are this big macho, attitude that probably did drill that into their kids' head. Hey, you're a boy, you're not supposed to like that kind of stuff,
Well,
which I think is
unfortunately,
ridiculous.
yeah, especially in southeastern Kentucky. I mean, that's how a lot of
Yeah.
people can be. I mean, I won't go much into detail on that, but I mean, you can imagine,
Yeah.
the stereotypes coming from southeastern Kentucky. I don't like to live by those stereotypes and
No.
say that's how everybody is, but unfortunately, some of those stereotypes can be true about some
Yeah.
people sometimes.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a great time back then. Living in the 90s, I will forever say this, and I'm sure that every generation says this about their own, era and time that they grew up in. But I
Mm,
feel so blessed to be a child of the 90s, the late
yeah.
80s and 90s, and the early 2000s because
We
stuff
were,
was
we were
so
me
awesome then.
Yeah, me and Candace were both born in '86, so we got to experience a little bit of the end of the '80s.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of our fondest memories though come from the '90s
Oh yeah, we got
because
to experience all
because
this
that was
awesome stuff.
yeah, because when the 1990 rolled around, we were about 4 years old at the time, so
Hmm.
we were just getting right into it. We were at the perfect age to experience all these things in the 90s. I have some friends that are a little bit younger than me that were born like 94, 95, 96, so they were kind of in the middle, being born, and they still had a couple of years before they would start making formative memories
Yeah.
and stuff. So they kind of, they by the time they were like in their formative years, it was the end of the '90s for them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
fortunately for me and Candace, though, we got to experience it
Experience
all.
every bit of it. Yeah, I remember it all. And that's great because so many great things, and people will not if you wasn't around during that time, they just cannot grasp how
Yeah.
even. And I've been toying around with the idea of doing like a show of revolving around this kind of thing. I've not going to give out details or anything yet because I've not decided on it yet. But one thing that I absolutely loved during the 90s, and the Backstreet Boys were such a big part of the 90s, that especially the tail end. That's why I'm bringing this up during this episode here, is because I loved that even restaurants were amazing back then. Their promotions that they had, you were so excited when a new movie would come out,
Yeah.
like Casper. Pizza
Oh
Hut
yeah.
had this awesome promotional stuff for Casper, and they had these puppets that you could get, or the Jurassic Park films. McDonald's or Burger King would get all this awesome stuff with these glasses and stuff that you could get, or watches, or the 90s was filled with that.
Yeah.
Restaurants were top tier back then. Like these fast food
It
chains
was
were top
awesome.
tier
I
on their
tell
game.
you
So exciting for movies to come out because they would always collab with these restaurants, and the stuff was awesome. So that brings me to the Backstreet Boys. Burger King, whenever Backstreet Boys got huge, huge, huge,
I know what you're going to
they
talk about.
Burger King went all out for Backstreet Boys. They had the CDs, they had VHS tapes, they had toys, they had everything. And I remember my mom. I'd get off of school and she'd drive me up to Burger King, and I'd get out and I'd go buy the new VHS tape that was coming out, or the new CD, and it was just awesome. It was something to look forward to. It was so cool, and it's so sad that today that stuff doesn't really exist anymore.
I mean, they have tried at certain times to kind of recreate that nostalgic factor of that with from different restaurants and places like that.
Yeah,
But it never catches on like quite like it did in the '90s because that was everything to so
it
many kids
was.
growing up. I mean, because you have to look at the fact that like this was before the internet for and a lot of that stuff when it came out, and some of it came out right at the time the internet was coming out, but the internet wasn't a big thing like it is today. Um, and I think a lot of the younger generation now they lose sight of that because they have everything at the grasp of their fingertips with a
Yeah,
phone or tablet or on their computer with the internet. And I think, I'm not trying to sound superior or anything, but we really appreciated all that, and we were grateful for that stuff
yeah,
in the
yeah,
'90s growing up because that's really all we had.
yeah. It's just it's fond memories, amazing
Mhm.
memories from that. And like I said, I feel so lucky to be able to have experienced that because I really wouldn't trade it for anything. Like if I knew that I could had the internet back then and stuff, I wouldn't have done that because Nintendo and stuff like that was so big to me back then. Would I ever have played anything like that if I would have had the internet and stuff like that back then? Probably not. I probably would have been obsessed with the internet, and the internet has gotten to where it even to today, as we as adults, we can attest to this our own selves. It is addicting. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we are
Yeah, I
'90s
get
kids.
it.
you know, true
Yeah.
90s kids. And the bad thing about it is, I see these shirts where people saying I was a 90s baby. Well, yeah. So I can't get that because I was born in the 80s, but I am a 90s kid, I guess is what you could call me.
Yeah.
You've seen these shirts where people I was a 90s baby, and they're like, oh, I'm superior because I was born in the 90s. I said, well, I got to experience all the
Yeah,
90s.
and like Candace said, we may do a show or something at some point based on all that because
Yeah,
really, like, I'm sure a lot of people that grew up in the '90s, just like us, did realize this, but there was so much,
so
like,
much, and I would love to talk
there
about
was
it.
so much to cover. I mean, because you
Mhm.
had everything was trying to compete with one. What's they do? There's still competition with amongst a lot
Yeah.
of things nowadays. But back then, like it was hardcore. I
Yeah,
mean,
oh,
you
yeah.
don't, if you weren't there to experience it, then you can't even imagine, and there's no
No.
way I can describe it.
But before we keep on going, we've already went almost 20 minutes just, reminiscing about the 90s, and we probably could do that for like I said, I think it would make a good show talking about stuff because I have so much in my mind that I would love to talk about. I guess we'll just go ahead and get into this.
Mhm.
The video. Usually we get into the video and then we talk, but I think we did a little bit backwards today, which is okay.
Yeah.
So if you've never watched us before or listened to us before, the way that we do this is we pull up the video that we're going to be watching and we get it queued up. Now we have our volume turned down for obvious reasons. We can't do we don't want no copyright strikes. So
Right.
if you're listening to us or if you're watching us, make sure that you have a TV available or another tablet or another phone, or you're on your computer, you can pull up another tab. We're basically going to provide our commentary over the music video. No, this one isn't very long. It's just around 6 minutes long. It's a great video, and I think it's perfect for this. Um, but what we do is I'll do a countdown. Start at the beginning of the video, make sure all the ads are gone, get it queued up, and ready to go, and I'll do a countdown, and we'll push play whenever I say push play, and we will provide our commentary over it. So if you're ready, Chris, are y'all queued up?
I am. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. So if you're ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push play. So we're greeted with the Backstreet Boys with this. What do you think he is? Is he like a bus driver or something, or some kind of? Oh
I
yeah, he's a
guess
bus driver.
that guy's from like
I know him
one
from
of his
something.
older shows. He's like, at
Let
first I
me
was
look.
going to say it was Jimmy Walker from Good Times, but that's not him.
Oh no.
But I know that guy. I know him
Yeah.
from something. But yeah,
So yeah, I know him from something. Definitely, we'll have to look that up here in a minute. But their buses broke down in front of this haunted house, and they've
yeah.
gone in here, and each one of these boys have their own room, and it's obviously like a haunted house. I get thriller vibes from
It's
this.
like more like a haunted castle because they showed that castle there, and I assume that's where they're at.
Yeah,
And then it kicks into the song now as they're
yeah.
dancing and all that. But
So
we'll see here in just a few minutes that as they start to kind of transform into movie monsters.
yeah, each one of them gets like a persona, which I really like. But they're
Yeah,
like in this big ballroom with like this, what do you call those things? Like hypnotizing, like circle,
I like
uh,
a swirl, like yeah.
swirls as the dance floor, which I really like. And they're doing this like
I've seen this video multiple times, but I had never paid attention to that before until you just said that.
yeah, I like that. It's like this like hypnotizing swirl for the floor. So here we have.
And yeah, it's Brian. He's
So
transforming
here
into
we.
like a werewolf, so he's
Yeah,
like the wolf man
he's like the wolf
representation.
man, um, which I thought was neat. I thought he made
And
a
he's
good
like
wolf man.
he's like a wolf man pimp or something with that big fur coat on and
Yeah,
chains.
yeah. So we have like some naughty maids rubbing on and licking on some coffins, and I think this is
Well, I've
AJ.
seen
He's
them.
like the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, well, they were like rubbing on the. I seen them more as like the Bride of Dracula
Kind
because
of.
where he's supposed to
Howie's.
represent a vampire, and
Yeah,
he looked
Howie
like
comes out of
Dracula.
that.
And then AJ, like you said, he's got the half mask on. And he's like the Phantom of the Opera, and then now we're seeing Nick and
And
then
Kevin.
Kevin.
Nick is a
And
mummy.
if I remember correctly, Kevin is like Dr. Jekyll, Mr.
Yes.
Hyde,
Yeah.
and Nick is like the mummy, of course,
Yeah.
because
Nick is a
he's
mummy.
like the mummy's coming out of a sarcophagus. But now it reveals like the side of Kevin's face where it's like it's different. So,
Which I liked him. I liked his character. I really did.
and even though he's supposed to be like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in this, he looks more like Two Face from Batman.
Yeah, I guess so. If it was like like pinkish, like fuchsia, I guess it would be. But
But I'm always biased when it comes to stuff that involves horror movies and just horror in general.
yeah,
So that's why I always really like this. This is probably the best to
no,
me. It's the best music video by the Backstreet Boys.
I don't know if you've noticed it, but like whenever Howie is like transforming, he becomes invisible. Have
Yeah,
you
it's like
noticed that?
I've never noticed it before, but now that you mention that, yeah.
Just watch. It may show him again. I can't remember if it does, but it shows like an invisible like man. You can tell it's like an invisible man, but it's Howie. He's the Dracula character. So,
But
um,
it showed Brian there. He was doing like the flips, the back flips, and all that. Because I guess it's kind of playing in that trope that werewolves have all this agility to them. So
yeah. And to be a mummy. Oh, and I never noticed that just till right now. But Nick, he's the mummy character. Does he got some
mhm.
like bondage type stuff on?
I don't know. I didn't pay that much attention to
It
that.
just shows him. Like, see, look. Did you see that? Maybe I'm not right. Maybe I'm
I
wrong.
think
But
it's about too fast. Maybe if it shows it again. No.
they all have that. I mean, we could see it. We can't really go, frame by
I feel
frame.
like they're showing other than the rest of the members are showing them a bunch, but I see that now with Nick at the bondage type stuff, but they're not showing him a whole lot in the video. Like it looks like the most shots they're getting on is like Brian and Kevin and Howie. Because it'll show AJ every now and again as the Phantom, but yeah, it looks like they wasn't getting a lot of shots in, or like film work of Nick's character.
I don't
But I
know.
mean,
And I hate to be this way, but probably my least favorite Backstreet Boy was Kevin growing up. But as I'm older, and I think it was because he was older, and I was, and I think that's the reason why. But as
A
I'm
few,
older, I think he's probably the most attractive one of
a few of those guys are from our state of Kentucky
Kevin
too.
and Brian. Yeah, they
I
are,
know Brian is,
and
and
Kevin.
Kevin is too.
They're
See,
actually
I'm not
cousins. I'm
sure.
pretty sure.
And you should see Howie there in them Tommy Hilfiger
Yeah,
overalls. That was another big thing in the '90s was Tommy Hilfiger.
yeah. So they're leaving this mansion like they all had a dream, like all that was a dream. But then they opened up the door, and the bus driver
The
is like
bus
he's like
driver,
dead or
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah,
and
like he was the one. He purposely brought them there. Yeah,
yeah. But I love that video, and we couldn't sit and go frame by frame. We usually try to describe what's going on. I mean, but if you're watching it, you're seeing it. It's just
yeah.
it's a video that um
It's really fast paced. Like it's on
very fast.
a lot. There's like a ton of cuts
There he is.
between in the sequences in the video. So
Yeah,
that's one that's very hard to describe what's
yeah.
going on because you're gonna be like, well, they're doing this. Oh, no, they're doing this. So you're gonna be like rambling all over the place if you try to even do that. But
But
so
I
it's
loved
just one.
all I loved all the
Sorry,
characters. Um, but who is your favorite
I
of
don't have
the
a
characters?
favorite. I'm not. I don't go that deep into
I don't
it.
know. I
um,
think I
You mean
really
who was
like.
my favorite in that video, or my favorite?
Yeah.
Are you asking my favorite Backstreet Boy?
Well, my favorite
Because
Backstreet Boy was always AJ. I'm not asking that.
well,
I'm asking which
I don't
character.
have a favorite Backstreet Boys. That's what I thought you meant by that because I don't go
No,
deep into that. But as far as like my favorite like role in that
yeah,
video,
Monster. Yeah,
I don't know. Like Kevin is that like half Dr. Jekyll, Mr.
Dr.
Hyde. I
Jekyll,
really
Mr.
like
Hyde. Yeah,
the appliances they had on his face.
I did
But,
too.
but AJ looked as cool as the Phantom too because behind that mask, excuse me, you could have he had all like that scarring and the
He did.
burning.
Yeah, I
You could
really
see
liked
that
him too.
kind of peeking out, and
Mhm.
but they're all cool looking. But I'd say like my least favorite probably Brian because I didn't really like how he looked as a werewolf, and I thought that was a really goofy kind of looking werewolf.
Yeah, I think it was the teeth. I think it
It
was
was
the teeth.
something. Maybe
It looked
where
like
he
he
was
had those.
dressed,
Looked
the
like he
way he
had
was
those.
dressed too.
You know how like when you go trick or treating and you get like those fake vampire teeth
Yeah,
in your bucket? That's what it looked like he had in his mouth. I
it
think.
did. It did kind of. Yeah.
But I love that video. I think it's awesome. It's a staple for the '90s. I think a staple music video of the '90s. And I want to tell a little bit about it. I usually do this at the beginning, but I think we got carried away, and
Right.
and I missed it. But this is taken strictly from Wikipedia. It's not nothing that I sit down and wrote or anything. I'm reading straight from it. But I just want to tell you a little bit about the music video, not about the music video, but about the song and just about the history of it. Just a little snippet. But is that okay, Chris, if I go ahead and do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Everybody, Backstreet's Back is a song by American boy band Backstreet Boys, written and produced by Dennis Pop and Max Martin. It was released as the first single for the band's second international studio album, Backstreet's Back, in July of 1997, and the third single from the self-titled debut U.S. studio album in '98. However, the song was already being played by many American radio stations unofficially by importing the Canadian single. The accompanying music video was directed by American director Joseph Kahn, and the video actually won the MTV Video Music Award for Best Group Video in '98. So I thought that was neat. But this video
Yeah.
was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not just the video, but the song itself.
Yeah,
I
the song
mean,
was
it's
everywhere.
definitely one of the more popular songs by the group,
Oh, yeah.
and
And it's one that
it's
you
been
still hear.
used. Yeah, and it's been used a lot in TV shows and movies and commercials. Um, like if you've ever seen the movie, which is a comedy, but it's also got horror elements to it. It's just
Mhm.
called "This Is the End." And it's got like Seth Rogen and James Franco and a lot of people like that in it, and they all play themselves, and it's like the end of the world is like happening and stuff, and like they throw hints throughout the movie that like a couple of the characters in the movie, they're fans of the Backstreet Boys. So, and spoiler alert, if you've never seen This Is the End, I'm going to give something away that happens at the end. So you might want to like
Look
either like
out.
pause this or like fast forward a little bit or something. But at the end of This Is the End, they die and go to heaven. And then when they get up there, as soon as they're entering heaven, it enters into a Backstreet Boys concert. It is the actual Backstreet Boys, and they start performing this song, everybody, and that's how the movie ends. and yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Okay, so I just did a little digging. I know who that bus driver is now.
Yeah, I do too. Who is it?
Huggy Bear.
Exactly, and
From
that kind
Starsky
of
and
plays into
Hutch.
what I was talking like. Brian as the werewolf, dressed like a pimp with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fur jacket and the chains, because that was what Huggy Bear was in
yeah.
Starsky and Hutch.
Antonio
But
Fargas
yeah,
is his name, and he's in all other. I think he's like on the Cosby Show. He's on
I
all
don't know
kinds of
why I didn't
like
think,
guest
but yeah,
star on other shows that I've seen him in everything. Yeah, but that's Huggy. I knew who that. So he is in a
yeah,
like a 70s or
I should have known
80s.
that straight
Yeah,
away.
that's
So
Huggy Bear.
when you said that, I was like, duh, of course, yeah, because we love Starsky and Hutch.
Hmm. Yeah, I really, I think that's awesome. Yeah, I know who that was. I just couldn't think of who it was right off the bat. But I've really enjoyed this episode. I mean, it's outside of what we've been doing, but I
Yeah,
think where me and Chris have it fits into our childhood kind of that we've had a lot of. I've had a lot of fun doing it. You know, I can't
yeah,
speak
and
on
we
for
went
Chris.
into that some too with the talk about the '90s and all that, and I
Yeah.
think when we start bringing that kind of stuff out and out of our memory bank and start, we get really nostalgic, and it
Yeah.
kind of increases. I think it intensifies. I guess I should say,
Hmm.
intensifies the mood
Oh
that,
yeah.
because those were a lot of, in the '90s created a lot of joyful memories for both me and
Mhm.
Candace,
Well,
and so when we watch a video like this and
mhm.
listen to that type of music, that just it starts bringing back not just like memories of knowing that song or seeing that video, but
Yeah.
everything that surrounded it
Hmm.
during that time.
So I would just want to say this, just do a little experiment. Anybody that's watching this or listening to it, find our comment section, and I also have the link to the video that we watched
Hmm.
in the description bar. Um, if you would be interested in Chris and I doing some kind of show where we talk about like the '90s, like toys and promotions and
I can even talk
video
to you about some
games and
random
stuff like that.
toys.
If there's some kind of like show, retro '90s show, '80s show, just retro stuff. If there's something, if you are interested in hearing us do something like that or seeing us do something like that, like doing a show that revolves around that, let us know. Write it in the comments. Send us a message somehow. Because I'm genuinely interested to see if anybody is interested in that. I know we're
I,
kind of newer and we don't have maybe a lot of followers right now, but if anybody is listening to this and you're interested in maybe seeing us do something like that, shoot us a comment or a message or something. Because we
yeah.
really love to hear your feedback, whether it's good or bad, whatever. You got any kind of like constructive criticism or anything like that, hey, we'll take it, on the chin. But
Oh,
I've
absolutely.
I've really enjoyed this episode. I love doing this series anyway. It's a quick, fast, fun thing to do. Um, wish we could have more people on here. I know people's busy and stuff like that a lot. And we've been busy. This is actually, we were kind of behind on some of our stuff, but we've had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of weather stuff and then personal stuff.
A lot of
Uh,
stuff.
yeah. But anything else that you want to say about this, Chris, before we end this
I
video?
mean, just I just echo what Candace said about that because I really think um, that we would get. I mean, I'm not saying there might be some people that might disagree, but I think majority of people that, especially people from our age group, grew up around the same time, or just people that maybe didn't grow up around the same, but are kind of, infatuated with that era. Like I was born in the '80s, so I didn't experience anything from the '70s, but
No.
I'm really like super interested in the culture and stuff during the time of the '70s.
Oh
So
yeah.
but as far as like this, like I said, it's the same thing with a lot of people that are younger than us that didn't really get to experience the '90s, but they're like super interested in stuff that
Yeah.
came out of the '90s. So I really do expect a lot of positive feedback as far as that's concerned because I think that's something a lot of people will be interested in.
Yeah. I do too, and I think I'm interested in doing it because I think it's something that we could easily talk about and get into. And we have tons of like the Happy Meal toys and
Oh,
promotional cups and
you
promotional
ain't kidding.
items from
I
the
love that stuff.
90s, and we could really get into some stuff and show some stuff off,
Yeah.
and I think
Some
that I think it would be
Nickelodeon stuff, some Cartoon Networks. Well, Cartoon Network was kind of toward the end of the '90s, but that's
fun.
where it began. The stuff with
Yeah,
like Cow and Chicken and Powerpuff Girls and all that
yeah.
stuff.
But
Johnny
just
Bravo.
let us know what you think. But we don't like to make these real long, so we're kind of getting long winded here. I mean, we probably could keep on going on and on and on, but just for convenience sake, I know a lot of people likes to just get on there and watching an episode and it being so we don't want to make it real long or anything like that. But I've really enjoyed this. Be watching out for our other stuff that we got going on our television. We drop these every Friday. Hop on over to Evil Dead Chicks channel. She's got a lot of stuff going on. I do a show with her every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time called Friday Foolish. I always have a lot of fun with that. Chris does a lot of streams with her. Check out our friends over at deadpit.com. Dead Pit, they do a lot of streams. Chris, you got anybody that you want to shout out for this one?
Yeah, I guess I'll just shout out, echo what you said, Dead Pit and Evil Dead Chick. But then, I have my buddies, Rambo Raff, Stuntman Mark, um, Garrett from Born to Be Rad. Um, Trying to think if there's anybody. Well, this guy isn't really somebody that I know personally, but I really enjoy his videos, and he goes by the name Froggy Flips. He's
Yeah.
super popular already. So if you're watching this, more than likely you're already subscribed to that guy because he's got a lot of subscribers, and he's just somebody I really enjoy watching.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a good time with this. But I guess we're going to go ahead and head out. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to have that thumbs up if you like what you're seeing and hearing. We would love for you to, keep on joining us on this. Any support that we get, we're super appreciative of. Super appreciative of. I mean, you just sitting there taking the time to listen to this, watch this. Means so much to us. So, again, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for sitting. If you made it this far, thank you for watching this. We're going to go ahead and peace on out. But I hope everybody has a good night, day, whatever time it is that when you're watching it. And we will see you next time. I'm Candace with Death by Stereo Podcast, and this is
I'm Crater. Peace out.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.